Amid the chaos of Salem's witch kit shops, ghost tours, psychic parlors, haunted houses, and other Halloween-themed tourist attractions, there is a small island of serenity, inspiring visitors to stop, breathe, and reflect on the city's most controversial historical era, when innocent people lost their lives as a result of ignorance and fear. This is the Salem Witch Trials Memorial, a somber and dignified remembrance to those who died in 1692. The memorial is surrounded on three sides by a 4-foot-high, double-facing granite wall, which opens into the adjacent Charter Street burial ground. Cantilevered stone benches protrude from the wall, each one engraved with the names of the convicted victims and the means and date of his or her execution. Words of the accused victims, taken from transcripts of the trials, are inscribed into the memorial's threshold, but they disappear mid-sentence, symbolizing society's indifference to their pleas of innocence. 6 locust trees, the last to flower and first to lose their leaves, represent the trees from which the accused were hanged. At the rear of the memorial, an iron fence reveals the tombstones of the 17th century cemetery, creating a stark confrontation between the accusers and the accused. The creation of this memorial began in April of 1986, when Mayor Anthony Salvo established the Salem Witch Trials Tercentenary Committee to prepare for the observance of the 300th anniversary of the Salem Witch Trials. A series of cultural events, museum exhibits, and scholarly lectures were planned throughout 1992, but the centerpiece of the commemoration was going to be the dedication of a permanent memorial to the victims of the 1692 witch hysteria. A design competition was held to turn this 6,000 square foot parcel of land into a memorial. Located in the downtown, this neglected site was surrounded by the 17th century Pickman House and Charter Street Burying Ground, where John Hathorne, one of the witch trial magistrates, is buried. $100,000 would be awarded to the winning submission, a budget covering both the artist's fees and construction costs. Over 246 entries from around the world submitted design concepts by the August 31st, 1991 deadline. By September, 3 finalists were selected by a jury of 5 professionals representing the fields of fine arts, landscape architecture, urban arts, city planning, and 17th century history. Each finalist was given a stipend to develop their proposals as a 3D scale model. On November 14, the winning design was to be unveiled by playwright Arthur Miller at a public benefit at the Peabody Museum. Miller first read a selection from The Crucible, expressed his views on Salem's tourist industry, and concluded by unveiling the winning concept, which was the result of a collaboration between architect James Cutler and artist Maggie Smith, both from Bainbridge Island, Washington. According to Cutler, quote, "We tried to create an environment that is pensive and not overtly frightening, but that symbolically reenacts the events of 1692. Maggie Smith aimed for clarity and simplicity and hoped that people would, quote, develop their ideas about its meaning for themselves without being told." Stonemason Hayden Hillsgrove from Sandwich, New Hampshire, was chosen to build the wall. He searched through various quarries in New Hampshire, many of which were abandoned, looking for weathered granite stones that had been cut and discarded for hundreds of years. These stones were then sent to a memorial service, which sandblasted the victims' names into the surface. In spring of 1992, installation finally began. When Hayden and his team of 8 men dug the footing for the wall, an archaeologist was present to make sure they did not come across any bones. No cement was to be used for the double-facing wall. The architects were adamant that it be constructed in the same manner as one built in 1692. This drywall technique requires the skill of a master mason who carefully weaves the stones together so that the weight of each stone balances the weight of another, binding the entire wall together. The cantilevered benches, which weighed upwards of 1,500 pounds, are held firmly in place by the stones on top of it. There is great artistry and craftsmanship to these walls. Notice how it carefully snakes around the old maple tree, how the fence gently steps upwards, and how each bench is so different in size and character. Giles Corey's bench, for instance, is the largest of them all, appropriate considering that he was crushed to death with heavy stones. The dedication ceremony took place on August 5, 1992. Over 1,000 people attended. The keynote was delivered by Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel, a Nazi death camp survivor who worked all of his life on behalf of oppressed people worldwide. The first Salem Award was presented to Gregory Allen Williams, who risked his life to save the life of a stranger being brutalized during the South Central LA riots. The memorial received national critical acclaim, being called high art by the Boston Society of Architects. And in 1994, the memorial was given the Honor Award for Architecture, the highest recognition in the profession. It was, however, a victim of its own success. By 2010, over 6 million people had visited the memorial, and it had fallen into disrepair. One of the trees had been cut down, the grass was filled with weeds, bare spots, or litter, and the memorial's wooden sign was marred with graffiti. Stones from the wall were loose or had toppled off completely, and the words inscribed at the entrance were completely illegible under dirt. Mayor Stanusevich said the city couldn't afford to restore or properly maintain the site, prompting Patricia Zito of Salem State College and Patty McLeod of the Salem Witch Museum to start a fundraising campaign, ultimately raising $120,000. Trees were thinned, allowing more sunlight for the grass, and an underground sprinkler system was installed. Hayden Hillsgrove returned to repair and level the wall so it looked exactly the way it looked in 1992. In variance from the original instructions, he was also allowed to use a small, undetectable amount of cement. Landscaping and lighting elements were restored, and a plan was created for maintenance to ensure the memorial's future as visitation increased. The memorial was officially rededicated September 9, 2012. Among the 400 people in attendance were 20 descendants of the witch trial victims, who placed rosemary, a plant symbolizing remembrance, on the stone benches while the victims' names were read aloud. The Salem Witch Trials Memorial will serve as an enduring tribute to the victims of 1692. Its contemplative environment evokes the spirit and strength of those who chose to die rather than compromise their personal truths. It also stands as a heartfelt reminder that all of us have a duty to not just remember, but to speak out in the face of injustice.